this a Coupe de Ville? I don't know much
It
about
is,
cars.
yeah, 69 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. It's my little summer pleasure.
So this is what you
It's
spent.
my side girl.
Yeah,
That's
this is what you spent the prize money on.
That's it.
This is where it all went,
My
eh?
bonuses.
Jeez. Well, thank you for joining me today. My first introduction with you was, I think it was the 2009 Ontario Open. Do you remember your long soccer socks?
I do, of course. I can't forget those. Those are like trademark. Those are those memories that I'll never forget because I was always told that you shouldn't
Wear them.
rocking those things, and I always just did what I felt was was me, and that's still what I do today. It's just
On the clay, you pull them out still?
no matter where I go, it's just I'm not with Adidas anymore, and I just provide my own stuff, which is Tennis Cool, and I have like a shorter version of them, just because it's so damn hot around the world.
No, 100%. I just remember you. You had such a unique style, and I think that's what we're going to talk about is how you've adapted and brought that to your business, Tennis Cool. And I thought it was super cool because I remember I was 16 years old and I saw you wearing them, and then for the next 2 weeks I ran home and I emulated it, and my coach Ben at home was like, take those off. So it only lasted 2 weeks, but
right.
you definitely inspired me.
Let me ask you this: what was the reasoning behind? Do you know why your coach was telling you to take those socks off, or what?
So we're gonna get into that, and yes, I do, because I find in today's tennis community, there's two thoughts of thinking: the old school thought and the new school. And from where I'm taught and was raised to play tennis, it was very like, it was a noble sport. You weren't supposed to throw your racket, you weren't supposed to get angry, you weren't supposed to wear long socks, you weren't supposed to wear a cat suit like Serena. It wasn't like that. But as you said, with the new school and the new generation of tennis coming into the mix, there's more. We're seeing more of your style. So I guess we can thank you and the rest of them for it.
Not me, but hey, I like to do my part.
You're quoted as saying tennis needs a little bit more rock and roll. Can you tell us about that? Like, what do you mean by that?
I think it's just a personality, right? It's rock and roll can be whatever you feel that the definition fits, and for me, it's being outside the lines. And when I was growing up in school, everybody told me to color within the lines. I tried, usually got outside. My favorite thing to do was to look outside and make sure that recess was there. So it's a matter of like personality, and I think that for me, the more I try to confine to normality, which is the rules and regulations, it just didn't fit. So I worked harder to be within those perimeters, and I feel that rock and roll is just being yourself, and I think that there's so many people that are rock stars, and it doesn't have to be the Motley Crues and like Metallica and like
the Curioses or the Titsy Basses coming in, the young
rock
guns.
stars. They're rock stars in their own form, and they're leading a new path, and that's the way the world grows, let alone tennis, and that's what we're going through right now, and we need a lot more rock stars to be able to get through a time that we're facing right now.
Exactly, and then one of the things they don't mention is that kind of stuff sells. The McEnroes, the Kyrgioses, like people like the I feel like grassroots of tennis, the old school, really like say not to do that or not to look up to that, but like I have to tell them, like it's just attractive to like a young boy. You're just very drawn to it. Now I know Tennis Cool was a tool for you to get your players that you coached on tour into a different mindset. So I want to talk a bit about that. I remember in 2014, you were in the semifinals of Wimbledon with Lucy Safarova, and you said there comes a point in a time where you set out to do something and you accomplish way more than you thought. Was that the first time where you said to yourself as a coach on tour, I'm in the semifinals of Wimbledon, like I've made it, in a sense? Was that a big accomplishment to you?
Yeah, well, funny enough, for everybody that's watching, it's not a matter of like realizing in the moment. that was a turning point and part of a pivotal point in my career. But earlier I had gone through some extreme measures in my life. I think the girl that you brought up earlier that I was dating, we went through a breakup, and that led to me becoming more in tune with where I wanted to go, and that set me on a path which led to ultimately being in the semifinals. And I had actually made my mind up quite early that I wanted success and I wasn't going to fail, and regardless of what everybody told me, I just had to be myself and really stick to what I believed in. And so when I found myself in the semis, it was actually, funny enough, there was a conversation that was held at the dinner table. I remember the sun was setting, the grass was like green and orange, and it was just like the most iconic like Wimbledon setting. And Lucy and I were sitting there, and we were just looking at each other and we're like, can you freaking believe that we're in the semifinals, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like it kind of dawned on us, but it doesn't sink in until the tournament's over, everything's said and done, and then you go home and you have time to sink in. But as fast as that happens, the tour is it's never ending. So it just goes to the next one. So
exactly.
It's funny because now I can look back on those moments and sit here with you and talk about it, and I'm much more relaxed and I enjoy those conversations. So that was the beginning of like really believing in the things that I had already put out into the universe and told myself like that was what I really wanted to do and accomplish, and they happened.
Because you said it was easier, you're much more relaxed. It's a very stressful environment on tour. Now you turn around and then boom, you're in the semifinals of the French the next year, and you mentioned that during that tournament, she pretty much squeaked most of her wins.
Yeah.
Did she feel different leading up to the French as a unit? Did you guys feel different leading up to that tournament? Like this tournament could be ours kind of deal, or was it like, oh my God, we're here again and we're in the final this time, not the semifinal, you're in the final?
I think you as a player, as a coach, you go in as confident as you can be, but you can never be prepared for what is to come. So, you check off all the boxes. It's you got to make sure you practice enough. You're doing your fitness, you're resting, you're recovering, and once that tournament starts, it's anybody's tournament. It's just a matter of how you deal with everything and the variables that happen and everyday life. So. We weren't expecting anything. No, trust me. We went into that tournament as prepared as we can be. Yeah. But there are so many variables, and Lucy was not feeling the greatest before the tournament. I remember trying to squeak some wins in before, even in the practices, just to try to get the confidence up to where we could maybe manage that, because you never want somebody to go in a tournament, like on a decline.
You spoke about packaging small wins on tour and and for the next day and really trying to bounce back quickly, even if you lost.
It's like micro and macro managing everything out on tour. And if you're a really good coach, you can really sense the importance of each day. So when you wake up, it could be listening to your player and the story that she's going to give you at breakfast of the dream she had from the night before. And that might be the most important thing that you need to really dive into, because it's managing nerves. And getting back to the French, it's like it's one match leads into another, which leads into another. And I remember sitting there and like in the quarters, I couldn't believe where we were heading, because it was.
I was watching from home because I was a fan of you, so I just couldn't believe it either. I was oh my God, there's Rob kind of deal. And you mentioned that it's so stressful on tour, and you're really only as good as your last win when you're coaching a pro player. And you said if there's crying on the WTA tour, it usually means someone's job's gone. Was there ever a time when you were sitting in the box and you're just like, man, I wish I could whip up on Indeed and just start Did you ever feel like you might have been on the chopping block and then
Always.
No.
Always, bro. Like there isn't a moment when you don't feel that weight. You know, and like I said before, and I'll always say it, even if the coach on tour anywhere in the world says that they're comfortable, they have the best relationship, that can end at any moment, you know, and it's a very vulnerable lifestyle that we choose as coaches on the tennis tour. There's no security, and you know, I've sat there pretty much every single match, and I think that's what makes me a great coach, is the fact that every single match means the world to me, right? And it's like, if I'm 100% invested in that player, and if they lose, I feel that it's my responsibility and where I could have gone different, you know, because ultimately, you know, the player could be nervous, not feeling great, whatever the matter is, and I want to take that responsibility. And then your brain as a coach, I speak for everybody, but I'm going to say that my peanut brain is thinking, you know, the worst outcome, because if that negative impact happens that day and you lose because of what happened the week before and it translates into something, that's what's on your mind, you know.
Like, and I totally get that, but like you have the downside of when you're losing, you could lose your job, but then you turn around. Oof, got a bug there.
It's summer, it's the June bug.
Then you kind of turn around, and if you're having so much success, you spoke on after the finals of the French Open, a lot of other coaches trying to poach Lucy.
Right.
So I want to ask you to speak on that, but is there a lot of poaching going on both sides of the tour? And if there's any stories you could give a little dropout without giving any names, I'd love to hear one.
Yeah, never names.
Yeah,
no. There's always poaching, bro. Like,
I noticed Roger Rashid moves around a lot too. So.
Well, you know, it's the name of the game. You know, it's the stakes are high.
Yeah.
Everybody has their opinion. Every player has, you know, their own vision of where they want to go, and people who like to talk and are good talkers are able to influence a lot of people. And so that's the world of not only tennis, I mean, I'm assuming it happens in every sport, not only, you know, sports, business. So, you know, I think it's just being comfortable with being yourself, understanding people, and not getting caught up in that mess. So for me, you know, I can see that translating, you know, after, you know, like you spoke about the French and people talking, but truthfully, I get up every day, don't care. I just do my thing. If it's my time to go,
it's your time to go. And especially because you and Lucy were I think, as you spoke, you were just traveling together with maybe a trainer on the side, as opposed to when you have a much bigger team, it's hard to get everyone on board. Now, I know you were with Lucy for a while, but you transitioned to teaching Denis Shapovalov, that had a much bigger team. And trying to get everyone on the vision and mission statement for the year is kind of hard. Was it harder having someone who's been coached by their mom their whole life, trying to get a point in edgewise, in the sense that this is your new vision for that player, but they've been coached by someone who's so near and dear to them? Was there a lot of noise, shall we say?
I mean, regardless of who you're coaching, there's always noise. So, you know, when I walked into Denis's camp, first and foremost, I was, you know, excited about the opportunity. Of course, him being, you know, fresh blood out on tour, so young, and me being, you know, not, I would say, I'm more of a veteran. You know, I've been
You've
there.
been around there. You've been around.
You know, so I know the game, and I understand walking into that experience would be a challenge, and that's the challenge that I was looking forward to. You know, navigating through the noise, and that's my part of trying to make sure that, you know, everybody knew their place, and eventually my time would come. You know, because that's the nature of the beast, and you know, I did what I had to do, and I had a lot of fun. We all had a lot of fun, and you know, Denis's mom is the driving force. His parents, you know, and God bless them. They, you know, he's had tremendous success because of the parents' sacrifice. You know, and you know, I wish him nothing but the best, because there's something unique about that type of relationship between, you know, the parents and, you know, the kid, the student, and he looks up to the parents in a way that I've never seen before, and I find it very respectable.
Well, I feel you were with him during the 2018 season, and I was looking at some of the stats when you were with them, and the smaller tourneys he did pretty well. I mean, he went to the semis at Delray, he went to the semifinals at Madrid, but overall, the Grand Slam performances during the 2018 season, you guys didn't seem to get crack the third round, shall we say. What was the best thing about coaching Denis, and then what was the hardest thing about coaching Denis? Because trying to get through to, obviously, a semis of a major compared to 1,000 is a lot harder. So speak a bit about on that.
Well, you know, we touched upon the fact that he's fresh blood, and somebody new to the game. Let's break it down to the very beginning of his career. He came in, he shot in super quick, beat Nadal. You know, he makes the semis of the Masters in Montreal. That was a shock to him. He had no idea that was going to happen. No expectations. So from there, that's where it became a career. Career now translates into a year later, we meet. I start coaching him. You know, there are points in his career now where he has to mature, and everybody knows his game. You know, it's just tougher to do well consistently at the Grand Slam level, and 100%. That's where, you know, he was breaking through, he was making strides, but it's inevitable. You know, it's
so just some more time, it sounds like.
Well, it's just time. You know, he needs to understand how he's going to play his game, and you know, he's got one of the best games in the world.
So attractive. He's very attractive to watch.
On and off court, he's just a stand-up dude. He's going to be able to make it. It's just somebody with that much firepower and energy has to understand how to deal with everything, right? I love this song.
Got a little country on a lovely Thursday night after Canada Day. There you go.
Right?
Okay.
Country.
Alrighty, so you're just talking about the Grand Slams, and I want to touch on that actually. So we've talked about all these young players, Zverev, Tsitsipas, Shapovalov. If we look back the last 16 years, 16 years is a long time. We're talking about the Grand Slams. 57 out of the 63 majors have been one of the top four players, being Nadal, Djokovic, Federer, or Andy Murray, who just recently retired. Is there a theme of annoyance throughout the younger part of the locker room to break that trend? And if so, who do you think is going to break through and finally break that?
Well, I would say Denis. You know, Denis is there. There's, you know, I think TM is a young kid that is just dominating right now. And he's probably at the forefront of like where the future's going, because that guy's like dialed in every day, not afraid of hard work, and not afraid of just playing and trying to win. And like the new gens, there's so many variables that go in. It's interesting because when I hang out in the locker room with all these guys, there's so many different personalities, you know. And there's so many different things that I won't speak on that make the future of tennis
Yeah.
and what you're probably trying to pry into. And I think that I'd rather just let everything play out.
Yeah.
You know?
If you were going to guess out of the big four, who is going to finish with the most titles? I have to have an answer. Who do you think is going to be, Nadal, Federer, or Djokovic?
Yeah. I mean, I would.
I need an answer. Everyone does this. Who do you think is going to finish?
Yeah, it's one of those questions. You know what? I would love to say Raj.
No, me too.
You know, I've been homies with him since day one, the juniors, and he's such a stand-up guy. He's done so much for the sport, but so is everybody else.
100%.
In on that list. But I almost want to say, you know, I would probably go with
this Cadillac on it. Djokovic?
Yeah, just he's got that all-round game, you know, and I, you know, even when Denis was playing him, it's just you compare Roger with his streaks and where he's going, and Djokovic with, you know, the age and the steadiness and the all-round game of what he brings to the table. I probably think that he has a little bit more length in his lifespan.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, if you were to have your pick of players right now, WTA or ATP on the tour to coach right now, who would you pick? You could pick anyone on. Who would interest Rob to go back out on tour and start that lifestyle again? Ooh, he's thinking.
Let's just say there's a little snackable that's already on the list.
Okay.
That I won't mention.
Okay.
But if I could have anybody, and I mean anybody, it would be you.
Oh, we'd need a lot of work. We'd be here for ages.
Hey, listen, we got some of that game, dude. I don't know if you want to roll that.
We're gonna roll the
B-roll right now, but no, you have potential. I'm telling you.
Oh my God, Ben! I've been waiting to hear that for years.
The forehand, but that backhand is rock steady. I'd make that a weapon.
I appreciate that. So I'll conclude with this. You have so many accolades on tour. What's next for Robert, and what does he want?
I mean, first and foremost, I put my family first. I think that's something that has taken a back seat for many years, and I was really confused because I think as tennis players we're really, really dialed in at being selfish, and for good measure, you know, and that's what it takes. But, you know, making sure that my family is priority. Second is, you know, going back out on the road, accomplishing more. I have things that I would like to do. I have, you know, a clothing brand, let alone, you know, it ties into the content side of things, where the future goes with tennis. And then, of course, I think starting my own little complex here.
The little academy here, the Robert Steckley Academy?
Yeah, like the tennis school of kids who...
Are lawn socks going to be mandatory?
Want to wear long socks and do their thing and win all the time.
100%.
Never lose.
Because if you're not first...
You're last.
Thanks. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining.